I've never been the type of person who scares easily. I grew up in a loud house, in a rough neighborhood, so strange noises at night never really bothered me. That changed 2 years ago when I moved into a small apartment complex on the outskirts of town. The building was old, maybe from the 1970s. Beige walls, narrow hallways, and the kind of place where sound traveled far too easily. There were only 6 apartments total, and most of the tenants kept to themselves. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The man who lived across the hall from me moved in a few weeks after I did. I never learned his name. He looked normal enough. Mid-30s, average height, always wearing a dark jacket no matter the weather. He never smiled, never said more than a short nod when we passed each other. I didn't think much of it. Some people just prefer being left alone. The first knock happened on a Tuesday night. It was around 11:40 p.m. I was sitting on my couch watching TV when I heard 3 slow knocks on my door. Not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. I checked the peephole. It was him, the neighbor across the hall. I opened the door a few inches and asked if he needed something. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder, like he was looking past me into my apartment. After a few seconds, he said, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" I asked. He tilted his head slightly, listening. Then he shook his head and said, "Never mind." And without another word, he turned around and walked back into his apartment. I stood there for a moment confused before closing and locking my door. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The knocking continued every few nights after that. Always late, always the same 3 slow knocks. Sometimes, when I answered, he'd ask strange questions. "Did someone come by earlier? Are you expecting anyone tonight? Did you hear footsteps?" Other times, he wouldn't say anything at all. He'd just stand there in silence, staring past me until I finally asked if he was okay. Then he'd quietly say, "All right," and leave. I started to feel uneasy, but I told myself he was just paranoid. Maybe anxiety, maybe insomnia. I didn't want to assume the worst. One night, about a month later, I decided not to answer. The knocking came at 2:13 a.m. 3 knocks. I stayed still watching the door. A minute passed. Then I heard something that made my stomach tighten. He whispered my own name, not loudly, not yelling, just soft enough that I almost thought I imagined it. I hadn't told him my name. I didn't respond. After a few seconds, I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. The next morning, I spoke to the landlord. I asked about the neighbor across the hall. The landlord paused and frowned. "That's strange," he said. "He shouldn't be there." He explained that the apartment across from mine was supposed to be empty. The tenant who had lived there previously had been evicted months ago, and the unit hadn't officially been rented out again yet. I told him I'd spoken to the man several times. The landlord promised to look into it. That night, I locked my door earlier than usual. At 1:06 a.m., the knocking returned. This time, it was louder, more urgent. I didn't move. The knocking continued for nearly a full minute before stopping. Then came the sound of fingers brushing against the doorframe. Slow, careful, like he was feeling for something. Then his voice again, closer this time. "I know you're awake." My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. "I heard someone walking inside," he said softly. "You should check your bedroom." I called the police. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, I heard his apartment door open across the hall. Footsteps moved slowly toward my door. Then they stopped. The dispatcher told me to stay inside and remain quiet. Officers were on the way. I heard the footsteps retreat. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They searched the hallway first. The apartment across from mine was unlocked. Inside, it was completely empty. No furniture, no clothes, no signs that anyone had been living there. But the air inside was stale, like it had been closed up for a long time. One of the officers noticed something odd near the ceiling, a small maintenance panel in the hallway slightly ajar. They opened it. Inside was a narrow crawl space that ran above the apartments, and in the dust lining the surface, there were clear handprints. Leading directly above my unit, the police asked if anyone else had access to the crawl space. The landlord said only maintenance workers, and only during the day. I stayed with a friend that night. The next morning, the landlord called me. His voice was shaky. He told me that when maintenance inspected the crawl space more closely, they found something else: a blanket, empty food containers, and a notebook. Inside the notebook were several pages filled with writing. My name, my work schedule, notes I be.